so people connect the story of Hatupatu and the bird woman. Whaitaima, I'd like you to play the part of Kurangaituku. I will be the rock. Perry, would you like to be Hatupatu? All you've got to do is run.
Well,
around and around and around. Taima tries to catch you because she's Kurangaituku. What's in my part? Oh, yes, I'm the rock. So I just what?
Why don't we make Perry the rock?
No, I wanted to sing wrong.
You want to...
Run, Hatupatu! E oma!
Oh, no.
Come back, Hatupatu! Right.
If your mind has any doubt, speak it now, let it out.
this was the original planting concept. But that was my original report, because no, Arawa TeWhare, they didn't contribute anything in writing, So this went to Transit New Zealand, because it was the road people that wanted either moved or the place moved.
So has it been moved?
No.
Okay, it's still in the same place.
I couldn't see the earthly use of moving a big thing like that. You know, move the highway, put the barriers in, do that. See, Maurice to study fatal crash site, and rock to get guardrail, sacred rock put behind bars, and in the end, a correspondence that I did in the meetings we had and held was a consultant planner here, and in the end, I got the only people that had any ideas in their heads to do the practical thing was Ngāti Tahu. So I went under their umbrella. This is by 1992 in April, and here attached proposed letter with references in that, and Timothy Rangitakatau, he was chairman at the time of the block. And from here, this was my report, April 1992, and that's where I gave the background justification of the Ngāti Tahu interest. That's bringing them in, and for that I did the report for this, and this is my 1992 report. Because when the people killed, the whole family were killed hitting the rock.
Yes.
And so we met. I've got photos, Ngāti TeWhare, Arawa interest, and a busload of Rokawa people. Took photos, a whole lot. And then it was, no one put anything in writing for the roading people requirements. And the only people that had any real sense, apart from the emotive side of it, was Ngāti Tahu. So I got the chairman then in 1992 to come in, justifying them and their presence here and interest. And so then the reports and that I put in writing to be given to all parties, and that was 1992. Nick Wall came in the last minute and said, "Oh, move the rock, move the rock." You know, always for developers, destroy or shift anything of cultural value. And I've got him in a letter, move the rock, you know, what's the problem, move the rock, massive rock, you don't know how deep it is under the ground. And no, simple thing of guardrail, and that was just too much. And shift to realign the motorway. And so that's rock on the move, and I did a report here, mystery crash killed 6 in the family, they were Buddhist family, and many mourn 6 victims. And
yeah, how on earth did he manage to hit it?
Well, that's why it's got the question mark too.
It sounds like it's a suicide if you ask me.
Well, no, he
Anyone-
could have been telling off a kid, foot to the boards or something,
Yeah.
and distracted that way. Anyway, the thing, requirements and that, but this had more than that because some years before I worked on the recognition, because this is an archaeological site, doesn't equate, never equated in the Act. They would not recognise any traditional sites like Hatupatu. So when they had a revived, I think 1980, a revision of the Historic Places Amendment Act, I submitted and got part of policy, added policy, the recognition of Maori traditional sites. Me did that, and so the first site I got recorded as a traditional site was Hatupatu Rock. So that goes way back and probably the earliest records in the Inch to Mile programs. So as I say, think beyond the moment and the consequences it would have for the rest of New Zealand and the country.
Tell me something. Why is it called Pohatu Roa, which is long rock, and yet it's called Kohatu, just 10 kilometres away from something that's spelt with a P to something that's spelt with a K? How do we account for that dialectical change?
It's very much marked if you analyse thousands of place names that aren't on existing maps, but the original places, and you've got a marked almost a ruler line dividing, say, the Munga and the Puke, the hills.
Yes.
And suddenly all the names with Munga are one north, or all the Pukes are to the south, say, or one way or another. And so that's a differentiation. If you gave me a atlas of ancient British history, without knowing they even existed, but knowing the provenance of names, I could tell you where the Vikings were, where the Romans were, and that, of the retention of places and place names. So it almost can map out geographically there, and the same applies to Maori with the dialectual and the divisional thing.
So that's my point. Why is just 10 kilometres away from where somewhere has known rock starting with P, Pohatu, yet here it's Kohatu? I don't understand how within such a short...
This belonged and connected to Hora with very ancient war trails that came right from Maniapoto country, coming right through here, right through to Rotorua. And this had very ancient uses for this place and for this area.
But the legend of Hatupatu, that's a Te Arawa legend, eh? It's not...
You'd thought so till a few years ago, and then this road widening, I then got involved. I was on a committee, and suddenly I was travelling one day back from forestry, and down the road here there were some people from New Zealand, the roading people, were standing side of the road. I had security gate keys but then they were near a gate, and so I stopped and asked them what they were doing, and so they then said, they said, we're going to widen the road, this and that, and do this and that, and might affect the Hatupatu Rock here. And I said, well, who have you been talking to? Oh, we're all ready to go. We've been talking 12 months to Ngāti Rokawa. And I said, well, what about Ngāti Tama? What about this and that group? Oh, no, it's only Ngāti Rokawa. That's why they're not sharing. They're this control thing. And so I got then involved. And so my reports came out for this road realignment, the bridge placement and everything else. And so I put out reports for all that and got involved then for the meeting with all interest groups. And when, shock horror, they couldn't control the stories of Hatupatu, they then arranged for the meetings to be held forth. I've got photos, different ones at Hatupatu Rock, various Maori groups at this rock. And so then, following that, meetings initially here and at Marae, but particularly all meetings after that, with the committee was held at the Rokawa Trust Board, the offices, offices there. And that meant the Arawa people, Historic Places Trust representatives from Tauranga and Wellington, were all at these meetings with local Maori appointees. And being on that committee, and we had people from the even Patararu Council attend, not Toka, Patararu. And so I got the minutes and everything for all of these that I attended. Now with that, what Ngāti Rokawa had done was taken all the Hatupatu stories and apply it to themselves and say only us, only us. They had nothing to locally contribute to, but they were using Arawa stories as the Rokawa Tainui. And they then insisted that all the meetings be held at Toka. So we persevered with that, and then the final sign-off took place, I think it was 2015. I was present, we had to sign off and do just round the corner at the camp, just past the, about a mile away, just past the shop here. And so I've been involved with the various processes, but Rokawa then had, for all this, they were going to do little signage all the way through and put in place archways and carvings and everything else telling the complete story. And they employed, to advise them on botanical planting, they got someone who from Kew Gardens had written a book, and they paid him to come to New Zealand before he went to the United States and that, to go to the offices. I was there with them, to advise on suitable planting. So we got an Englishman from Kew Gardens, or could put a bit of flax here somewhere else, and that was an expenditure. None of that grandiose thing ever took place, but they spent all that money to get them from overseas and to advise them.
Wow.
It's
ridiculous.
It is. It's just the same that they're employing someone as a cultural advisor to a group that the natives can't know where they are culturally with their own marae and that they need advice. It's silly.
What is odd to me is down the end there they've got this ring of stones in the ground that you walk around. There's nothing in the ring. There's no reason for the ring to be there.
They make things up.
But it could be a beautiful feature, but it's not. And I'm just going, what is that
It's
for?
like Whare Waka. They put a few stones in a bit of a circle,
Yes.
and suddenly people come, new ages and that, and they'll dance and chant around it as if it was there from the where we'd go.
Yes, as if there's portals there.
Puts idea in people's minds. And that's like bringing a rock from way down off the other side of the river to keep this one company. Silly ideas like that.
Well, it could have been lonely.
Well, it's
You haven't spoken to that rock and asked, would you like to have a companion?
now with that I've got so I've been involved in the between the roading thing. My first photo of myself here was 1954 at the rock, and then it was all dirt road, and the buses, every tourist bus used to stop here.
So it's been a feature for a long time.
Well, in my memory, to be witnessed, and the bus, people would come out the bus and they'd leave not pennies but threepences and sixpences, whole piles of them. But at one time you'd never be here, and one of the 5 or 6 cars would always go toot toot if they weren't calling in. Now I don't hear any cars go toot tooting. That barrier has been almost a disconnect now.
Yes.
To Maori that are travelling.
Yes, unless they happen to see the sign. But you're absolutely right. Isn't that interesting? They've absolutely obscured the fact of what was a public kind of feature is now rendered anonymous.
And so quickly.
Yeah.
Just within a few years. See how things change. But so that's a bit of the
and then once the bush grows up even more, it'll make it almost indivisible from the rest of the forest around, which is what they're planning.
Did you go to the rock?
Yes, we've been coming here for many years.
Yes, but just now.
Yes, a little bit of money. no food. So people are taking notice of the sign saying don't bring food or drink there. But it says nothing about coins. In Hong Kong, they have money, spirit money, that you burn so that...
There you go. Did you hear that car too?
Well, first car, must have had a couple of T300 vehicles go past, one toot. So that
Oh, there we go.
must be
Making
near
a
enough.
liar out of me. But those are cool traditions, aren't they? You know, where you as a motorist would toot.
Yeah. And someone from Ngāti Whaitaima Naruto said, we didn't read your report, Perry. You weren't doing it for us. What ignorant bias. This was a report through the road people for all the hapu and their
Knowledge
benefit.
is knowledge. Why does it have to be...
And I happen to mention them no less than 23 times, critical things. We weren't reading it, we weren't doing it for us. And then written in knowledge 23 times. And that's the ignorance I'm getting. Same people, big noises and that now. And the marae up the road, we didn't read your report. In other words, if I did it for them, it'd only be 23 times their mention and no one else, no acknowledgement to anyone else. And this is a bias in the thinking that you're getting, whether it's tribes to marae to different things, right to the here and now. And this is the control of rather see sites being destroyed than doing anything practical to protect them, especially if you have to include others.
So is this what's happening? You know, we went to Murupara and there's a site there that's not being looked after.
By people or us, more of the same, not recognising anyone else who wasn't in there in the first place.
And again, but even worse, there's no signage to indicate where the site is and no story about it until you actually get on site.
And they're making money by taking people from before COVID, straight from the airport internationally, Germans and others, and treating them up there.
To me, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but where the signage is completely concealed, and you know, I'm thinking, well, is this right? You know, why is this a kurahuna? Is it because the land is now owned or temporarily by Harvard University? I mean, all they've got is the interest in the forest. Why should that overlay in people's rights to access an ancient...
Oh, that's when the Chief Archaeologist, Department of Conservation, said nothing there.
Where are we?
We're back up for Hataroa. And when you got in there, look how big it is. There were two side chambers, so I was in the third chamber, me as an adult taking photo looking up at the entrance. But according to the Chief Archaeologist, who's now contributed the archaeology for the Waikato Lakes in this book that's coming out, nothing there.
Wow, so this is
in a big pit, storage pit from the entrance up top, which would have been blocked off for letting the rain and that in. And I'm in one of three side chambers, and that's a sketch at the bottom. So I'm taking photo of A, looking up this top here, and see it's the profile of the one side of it.
Wow.
Coming in. Nothing there. Now, where do we hear nothing there? An elder to the forestry waving up where there are 20 sites. Oh, nothing there. I don't know what's in the human condition, but if a person doesn't say anything, it assumes that no one else knows anything or should be consulted. Just the end of the conversation. I'm just going to have a quick walk myself down here, seeing I'm here. The story of the Hatupatu is Hatupatu was one of three brothers, and the connections also connect both Makatu, and the connections also connect Mokoia Island. So it's all Arawa, the story of the bird woman Kurangaituku, and that's where it's been just handed down. one thing with this was the man at our committee in Toka, he kept saying about the sacredness and the spirituality and everything. And about our fourth meeting there, and I was with one from Ngāti Tahu, and I said, well, don't even speak your background with the Hatupatu and the connection. And the connection you've got with the this and the Ngāti Tahu people. You're hearing enough between the banter between Arawa and Ngāti Rokawa. And so when he kept talking about the spirituality, busy road.
We're good.
But when he started talking of spirituality, I think at fourth meeting I said to him, I said, now all the money that was being put there, I said, what happened to that? Or we, when we were going to school, Atiamuri school, we didn't go to school. We had to deal with a shopkeeper up here. And so this most sacred spiritual thing they knew of as kids, they were flogging the money and cashing in, and then grabbing the school bus on the way home. So that's how they spent many of their days.
See, that's a good little that's a good little scheme.
So I do my timing, let it go once or twice, and then I put in the challenge. Now, when we had a meeting, the roading people got their archaeologist, and they were supposed to monitor and do this and that. The sensitive things were up on these banks here, up on these, just on banks here. This has been so up on the banks. See that bit of greenery, that solid line of greenery in front of the front there? Now, the archaeologist I met was supposed to, monitor all this.
Interesting how some say Kurangaituku and some assist. No, it's Kurangaituku, not Kurangaituku.
Yes, and that's what I was asked for a comment. But you've got to make everyone happy, don't you? So you put everything, warts and all.
Yeah. Well, it's inclusive.
Yes.
And again, no one's developed a sign that seems impervious to time. Look, it's already going to be destroyed within a year. This will have grown and this will be illegible.
Well, move over Kurangaituku carving sign.
They spend so much money and yet it's going to be destroyed within a couple of years. See, better, why didn't they just carve something in the rock? Then it'd be there, moake tonu atu. These silly signs that last 5 years, hey, that's what I would say.
There's
Te kohatu o Hatupatu, boom, never have to be replaced again.
so when we so you like my little story, but the challenge was with a large group between councillors and others, all about what happened to the money.
Where the money at?
Oh, it's a nice Hatupatu photo. See, these things are good, eh? Tap or scan for more information. That's when you can get, I reckon, that's a really good tool. In fact, all they really need is a bit of it. They need that. All of this could be accessed through that. So here's another fairy ring that was,
Yes.
they found this in 1842, and it's actually a portal to another dimension.
And you see how the Maori mix of new agey, sacred circles and rings and gatherings are starting to get mixed up and detracts from the original Tuahu stone altar and ritual places. This is your part of your history remaking.
Because these are sacred, these daisies in here. They've been used in them wires to make rings. And this, what's that thing? I mean, that's the feature. You'd think all roads lead to this.
Well, that's the rock they put from the other side of the river to keep this one company.
You mean this one?
This rock was taken from across the river.
But there's no mention of that.
No, they because it's a bit embarrassing and silly now to mention such things.
And I noticed this is a birch tree.
That's right.
What's native about that? What's that doing? Here.
See, that's the rock they took from the other side of the river to keep this one company, and now they've distorted it with this false circle. But to get a world expert, you and I could have just done the same thing like this without thinking. We got a free trip to New Zealand out of it.
Well, how do we get free trips overseas, Perry? And get free boat petrol for our boat?
That's hard case. So when you know that it's been put in there specially, no mention of it, and the reason behind it being to keep this one company. It's
and now they've added all this.
The fairy ring. Yes.
All this. See how they've detracted from the...
Totally. It's almost as if they've meant to make this a side show and something else the show. It's extraordinary. So where's someone taking a cold chisel?
Oh, here.
What, and they glued it back? Ah! They've tried to glue it back. Oh, look. There's something here.
Yes. They put it back.
I'm just saying, the glue's not holding it.
The glue?
It's been glued.
Yeah.
They've tried
I tried to put it back where it's been chiseling it. Just hopeless, isn't it?
Well, it's beyond hopeless. It's like, it's what for?
Can you put it in alignment with the other bits of glue?
It is. This is the place where it's come from. That's what I'm saying. That's where it's this bit that's gone. It got broken off. All of this got broken off and then glued.
Glued back on.
Well, bits of it.
That's as good as the conservation attempt with the carvings, isn't it?
Well,
Oh, there's more under there, Jeffrey.
it's humorous. Well, I'm not going to put the digs all back together.
No.
Things wear over time. All mountains get worn down to grains of sand, so why are they trying to... That's been hit with a car. Look, I mean, what's with that?
Mm.
Destroy it.
There's such fun, but what a
mess. What a dog. What's this? better so people connect. The story of Hatupatu and the bird woman. Whaitaima, I'd like you to play the part of Kurangaituku. I will be the rock. Perry, would you like to be Hatupatu? All you've got to do is run.
Well, if
around and around and around. Taima tries to catch you because she's Kurangaituku. What can my part? Oh, yes, I'm the rock. So I just watch.
Why don't we make Perry the rock?
No, I wanted to sing wrong.
You want to...
Run, Hatupatu! There, Oma! Oh, no! Come back, Hatupatu! Right. Hold on.
I'm hiding now.
Yes.
You are.
See, but even what we're doing now is bringing the story alive in a way that makes it tangible. Whereas this is maruki, this is dry and...
Detract
Yes.
a whole thing.
Yes.
This,
It is very close to the highway though, isn't it? When you see
well, that's why
the distance.
got a letter thing Nick Wall, he wanted this rock lifted and moved. But the bones, lift and take them away, do everything, but they can't hold progress. That was this pine tree mentality. Override the elders and their concerns. No, I want trees planted on that spot, right or wrong.
Our battery's getting flat.
All right, we've done well.
Yeah.
We've done really well. I've got
So
another one.
you've got another one.
I've got another one.
You
Well,
got footage of Perry running around the
I have.
Hatupatu
No,
rock.
well, my camera was jiggling everywhere, so...
Like too fast for you to catch
Too
up.
fast. You're just too
A
fast.
classic example of where a nice little rock carving would just accentuate. But they've got to put a sign with other artwork on it rather than rock art. It will be there forever without any need for another sign to be made. It's
I had a group with this pendant, took photos of them, and we brought it out down here, and this pendant was then it was specced and blessed. How that pendant came about, I've got the report on it. Don't know if it's in here, but I went with forestry people, and they're very representative, and I had my stick, and so I went to this place. I put the stick into the ground, and I said, look, I said, this place you could find anything. You know, I put the stick on the ground, you know, like yay. And then Ringy Jacobs came, moved where I put the stick, and there's a pendant sitting there.
Oh,
I could not convince the forestry people I hadn't planted it there. That's been my unerring sense of accuracy, of knowing precisely these things. And there's no archaeologist in the world that has that. They can't be taught that. You either got it or you don't. Yes. So that was...
that's unique.
that was way up on the ledge. As I said, I didn't look at the higher ones. That was the one, not a big shelter, but a bit better than the others that were there.
so there are shelters. Is that what you were looking at?
That's the one I recorded. I recorded as a site. And the big caves around the corner, they were half buried by the people who were pushing all the waste and the slash and that over the banks. So the big caves above the shopping area,
Really?
that all covered metres of slash and fill and everything else.
If you don't mind.
You're asking about the two-story tower in how come then Waitanui and everything? That is just a result of modern stories and marriages and everything else coming into it. But historically, there was the mana over the people for Tūwharetāua went south of Tauranga Taupo. It was the marriages and the peace being made through Atainutai, and chiefs from Mokai that had a treaty arrangement that brought the marriages of Taurangita into it, and for that Tūwharetāua as a hapu grouping had only mana and control of the land south of that area. And when I say about rock art, as far as rock art goes, it ends at Motuapa and it ends at just north of Kuratau, and there's nothing south of that, which happen to be the lands of the hapu under Tūwharetāua.
What about at Tokanu?
Now,
there's a bit of rock art there.
That's a spiral. I'm talking about your pigment applications, shelter pigment use, shelter occupation pigment use applications. There's now one of the things is the paramount chief, the Mananui. He only had control of the groupings that were south there. Now the big raids and wipeouts for Tūwharetāua was from the 1820s to 1830s. Well-armed Ngāti Maru people used to come on an annual basis to attack Tūwharetāua.
Where did Ngāti Maru come from? Where were they?
Originally Coromandel. They ended up as an entity at Maniaputu country and toured the coast that way. But they came annually to give Tūwharetāua a bash every year for 10 years, because they had muskets, and Tūwharetāua didn't have any. They to ward them off. But as a mana over people, that was confined to the groupings south of Kuratau and south of the Tauranga Taupo areas there. A paramount chief could have mana over people, but north, but not over land. And even the paramount chief Horonuku could not sign or do any leases north of Omori, let alone include Kuratau, because as he said, he had no mana at all, him and his people over the land there. Why is it now everything Tūwharetāua everywhere you can see? It's but this is how you're reworking generation or two until people just accept somehow. Look there, 141 hapu. 141 hapu. And the hapu groupings include various tribes all through these areas.
You're talking about 141 hapu in this area?
No, for the region. For the region on what Tūwharetāua lovingly want to claim, which was never accepted as a survey document in the courts, or signed by any court judge, but Tūwharetāua still hang on the delusion with holding a map in the boardroom as if it's worth more than the paper or the historic interest it's written on, as the Tapunuitia map, and that included by 1886 the submission of 141 hapu in the region. That region went from Mohaka to Taumaranui and to north to Shire of Rotorua and south north of Taihape. So that included many, as I say, different peoples and different groupings and other tribal groupings that were mostly of Arawa descent, I should say. But even the ABC basics of that is not even thought I've looked at.
If your mind has any doubt, speak it now, let it out. If your mind has any doubt, speak Speak it now, let it out, let it in, let it out, let it in, let it out. If your heart has any fear, hide it here. If your heart has any fear, hide it, keep it on what's here. Let it in, let it out, let it in, let it out. When the daylight starts to go, hide and keep the body. Let it in, let it out.